All right, let's get right into it. We're going to unpack a pretty radical idea today. The idea that your financial reality, it has way less to do with your job or the economy and everything to do with this invisible programming that's running in the back of your mind.
So let me just start by asking this. What if the biggest thing standing between you and wealth isn't your bank account, or your job, or anything out there? What if it's your own mind? The way you've been taught to think about money without even realizing it.
This whole thing really boils down to two completely different mindsets. On one side, you've got what's called poverty consciousness. It's basically programmed for scarcity, and it unconsciously pushes money away. But on the other side, you've got owner consciousness, which is totally rewired for abundance, and you guessed it, consciously attracts money. Let's break down what that actually looks like.
Okay, so first things first, we got to talk about this idea of an invisible mental prison. It's that feeling, when you get an unexpected bonus or a little extra cash, and it's like, poof, it just vanishes. It feels like you're not even allowed to keep it for long.
And what's wild is how many of us can relate to these symptoms. Feeling guilty for wanting more, or actually apologizing when you're asking for a raise you know you deserve. This isn't about not being ambitious. It's about this deep, unconscious program that's telling you to just be grateful for what you have and to settle for less.
And this quote, man, it just hits the nail on the head. It's not that money is actively avoiding you. The real issue is that your own mindset is acting like a force field, unconsciously pushing wealth away every single time you have a self-limiting thought. You're actually expelling it.
So you have to ask, right? Where in the world does this programming even come from? Well, this whole idea traces it right back to our earliest years, back to what we can call the chains of childhood.
And here's the crazy part. These incredibly powerful beliefs about money, they were installed in our brains when we were just kids, long before we had any ability to think critically or question them. They just became our reality by default.
Just think back for a second. Did you hear stuff like this growing up? Money doesn't grow on trees. Sorry, we can't afford that. Or maybe, oh, that's for rich people, not for us. These weren't just throwaway comments. They were seeds of scarcity being planted, writing an invisible rulebook that can end up running your entire financial life.
So, this brings us to a major turning point. Because look, understanding the problem is one thing, but the real shift, that happens when you stop seeing yourself as a victim of this programming and start seeing yourself as the owner of your mindset.
And this leads to a pretty brutal question. One you might even ask yourself when you're feeling really frustrated. After all these years of feeling stuck, do you really want to keep living like this? It's a question that's meant to jolt you into a moment of clarity.
And here it is. This might be the most uncomfortable, but also the most empowering truth of all. Those chains that you feel are holding you back, they're not being held by your job or your past or the economy. They're being held by you.
This is where the concept of radical responsibility comes in. It's this incredibly powerful light bulb moment when you realize that if you have the power to unconsciously build your own prison, then you have the exact same amount of power to consciously create your own freedom. That's it. That's the whole game.
Okay, so let's get practical. Enough talk. How do you actually start to break those chains? How do you really start to rewire your brain for wealth? This is where we shift from just diagnosing the problem to taking real action.
So here are 4 steps to get started. First, you have to challenge that voice in your head. Literally say it out loud, I am an owner, even if your voice shakes when you say it. Then, it's about your physical presence, how you carry yourself. Next, it's about your financial choices, betting on yourself. And finally, acting from a place of I am worth this, instead of asking, is it okay if?
Now let's zoom in on that second point for a second, because this is fascinating. The idea here is that a poverty mindset isn't just a thought. It actually lives in your body, in the thousands of tiny, unconscious physical gestures you make every single day.
Just look at this comparison. It's wild, right? A poverty consciousness literally makes you smaller. Slumped shoulders looking down. An owner's consciousness, though, it broadcasts itself through posture. Shoulders back, steady eye contact, taking up the space you deserve. These little gestures send a powerful signal to the world and to yourself before you even open your mouth.
And this translates directly into how you handle money. The protection mindset, which comes from that place of poverty, is always asking, what if I lose this? It keeps you safe for sure, but it also guarantees you stay stuck. The investment mindset asks a totally different question, but what if this works? It creates possibility and understands that growth requires taking smart risks.
All right, this brings us to the final and honestly the biggest idea of them all, the concept that money is nothing more than a mirror.
Here's the core takeaway. Money isn't a reward for being a good person or a prize for working hard. It is a precise, unflinching mirror that reflects exactly what you, deep down, believe you are worth. Your bank account is just showing you the results of the negotiation you've had with yourself about your own value.
This is so powerful because it's the complete opposite of what most of us think. We think, if I just had more money, then I'd feel worthy. But this flips it on its head. It says you have to feel and act from a place of self-respect first. Money is then attracted to that existing sense of worth.
And this leads to a really interesting thought, that maybe money has a kind of intelligence. It wants to flow to people who won't be destroyed by it, who won't be corrupted by it, and whose identity isn't defined by it. It's looking for a stable container, for someone whose character is actually bigger than the money itself. So, to wrap all this up, I'll just leave you with this one last question to think about. If your financial situation truly is a perfect mirror, what is it reflecting back to you about your own sense of worth, right here, right now?